Be there tonight at 8 on ABC 7, Chicago.
John Hannity cuts to the chase.
Tough questions, straight answers. You want it, you got it with me.
Hannity, weeknights 7 till 10 on News Talk 890 WLS.
Teri OBrien on News Talk 890 WLS. Taking your calls about the Democratic Convention. I'll play for you some sound bites of some of the more interesting comments that were made at the convention. Get your take on which speaker you thought was the funniest, lamest, most obnoxious, or maybe you enjoyed the speeches. That would not be me. But I watch C-SPAN, so you don't have to. Also want to talk a little bit about Barack Obama, the new star, our Illinois' very own. Some of the comments about him and sound bites from his speech, but also just wondering why there's virtually zero critical examination of his record. Also, there's an article in the Tribune this morning. A couple of, you may think he's running unopposed, but there's a couple guys that are running against him who are quite upset that you don't even know they exist and are very concerned that nobody is giving any critical examination to Mr. Obama. But I want to play for you a soundbite of something that I want to get your take on this. A lot of people thought this was cute, charming, humanizing. I'm not so much. Take a listen.
We were standing on a dock, waiting for a boat to take us on a summer trip. Vanessa, the scientist, had packed all of her animals, including her favorite hamster. Our overzealous golden retriever got tangled in his leash and knocked the hamster cage off the dock. We watched as Licorice, the unlucky hamster as he became termed, bubbled down into a watery doom. Now, that might have been the end of the story, a mock funeral at sea and some tears for a hamster lost. But my dad jumped in, grabbed an oar, fished the cage from the water, hunched over the soggy hamster, and began to administer CPR.
Indeed. John Kerry, the hamster's best friend, the rodent's best friend, the rat's best friend. But aside from the fact that this is a man who voted against increasing penalties for those who kill or injure a fetus in the womb, because apparently, I guess that's not as important as a hamster. But what do you think of that hamster story? Frankly, as I said, a lot of people think it's cute, charming, humanizing. Me, not so much. Also, I was wondering, where's Alexander Kerry's see-through blouse at the convention? That would have gotten some ratings. People were complaining there's no ratings. I think that I'm closer in view of that speech to David Broder, who appeared on Washington Week in Review on PBS on Friday, and this is what he had to say about the hamster speech.
Can I be the grouch at the table?
Please, we count on you.
I thought it's not just, and I don't want to make it personal to those two very bright young women, but somehow we've gotten into this pattern of, exploiting the family. I mean, and taking what are the kind of family stories that every family has that they treasure and trying to convert them into the coin of he's a wonderful person. I began to gag.
Didn't we cross that line about...
Exactly. I began to gag. Is the fact that John Kerry gave CPR to a hamster 20 years ago, or whenever the heck this was, does that make you feel better about him fighting the war on terror? 312-591-8900. Let's talk to Hope. Hey, Hope, you're on WLS.
Hi.
Hi.
That previous clip that you played where, he says, I will strike back.
I am John Kerry, and I will defend our country against attacks. Yeah.
Right. Well, the rest of the paragraph, he went on to say, but I will not use National Guard, and I will not use reservists.
Really?
And I will increase our military by 40,000 troops. Am I to believe that the recruiting offices are turning people away now and he's going to put an end to that? Where is he going to get these people from?
That's a very good question. I wonder where he is going to get, especially since he has been running around complaining about the reservists. And, you know, we've had reservists in every war since World War I, so I don't know what he's complaining about. And
Right, but he's going to respond. If
Yes.
we're attacked, he's going to respond.
That's right, Hope.
Reservists.
That's right, Hope. You better feel safer now. Thanks for the call. You're right. I have no idea. And you know what? I don't think we're going to get an answer because I've seen this guy since the speech, and anytime anyone asks him a specific question, it's almost like, well, I have a secret plan, but I'm not going to reveal it till I'm elected. You just have to trust me.
Right.
Right. Thanks, Hope. Have a great day.
Okay,
Bye.
you too. Bye.
Yeah, I think it's like Ralph Nader said. I'm going to have to find that clip where Ralph Nader said, he asked him something, and John Kerry basically just said, no, you just have to trust me. Oh, yeah, right. That's going to happen. Well, we've got some candidates here for funniest, lamest speaker. We'll get to that. Yes, okay, one of them is Ron Reagan. He's one of my nominees. I've got some sound bites from him. We'll listen to that. We can't leave out Teresa. Did anybody see Hillary's reaction to Teresa when they cut to her? Whoa, if looks would kill. I'm Teri OBrien. This is News Talk 890 WLS.
We were chasing Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, and abruptly we decided to go to Iraq. He had the support of the world and the Arab world before we diverted our attention from Afghanistan to Iraq.
You want to ignore some of the things that are also happening, such as Muammar Gaddafi. Now we have him cooperating. You're believing a little bit too much of what Al Jazeera has to say and not focusing enough on our realities here.
Deborah Rowe, 10 to midnight, weeknights on News Talk 890 WLS.
WLS News Time 1:31. I'm Rachel Fuchel. Homeland Security Director Tom Ridge has announced an increase in the terror alert level for financial institutions in New York, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C. Those locations are now on orange or high alert. American Airlines is flying again after a computer glitch forced the carrier to ground all flights for a time this morning. Flights into and out of O'Hare are still running up to 2 hours behind schedule. An Illinois Department of Transportation worker is hospitalized after being hit by a vehicle on the Dan Ryan yesterday. Richard Donovan was helping a motorist change a tire at the time of the accident near 83rd Street. WLS time saver traffic. Westbound 8094 slow from Indianapolis Boulevard to the Bishop Ford.
And Carl Jeffers. Saturday, 6 till 9 p.m. on WLS.
Another weekend that's better. WLS.
Join Bruce Dumont as he takes America's political pulse, and his guests answer your questions live Sunday evening, 6 to 8 p.m. on News Talk 890 WLS.
Thing we have to fear is 4 more years of George Bush.
Yeah, the only thing I have to fear is you driving me home, Ted. That's never going to happen. Teri OBrien on News Talk 890 WLS. Can we really trust these people to fight terrorists when we have Ted Kennedy up there telling us the only thing we have to fear is George Bush? Excuse me? Today we discover that there is a credible bunch of intelligence explaining to companies in New York City that they are to be on high alert. They need to, according to the Director of Homeland Security, they need to consider posting a security officer at the fresh air intake of the HVAC rooms and be sure the rooms are locked. They need to be, this is interesting, be wary of visitors who appear lost or disoriented and people asking directions. Be wary of loiterers. Be wary of, obviously, unanticipated deliveries, unanticipated maintenance. So, I mean, the only thing we have to fear, according to is this convention taking place on September 10th, 2001? 312-591-8900. I want to take your calls, but first, I want to share a couple things. There they go again. Today, the liberal Death Star. Here's the headline. Well, this story is about the fact that President Bush and Dick Cheney are going to resume campaigning during the month of August. And the headline says, Bush planning August attack against Kerry. And I thought it was pretty hilarious in Kerry's speech when he gave the shout-out to President Bush and said, you know, let's not be negative. Let's not say anything negative. In other words, translation, don't talk about my voting record, because I've just given this 55-minute speech in which I've gone from 1969 in Vietnam all the way to 2004 and kind of forgotten about 20 years when I was in the Senate, when I did everything I could to vote against every weapon system I could, to reduce the amount of money available for intelligence, to emasculate the CIA. I don't want to talk about that stuff. And if you do, that's going to be an attack. Now, on Friday, the president was in Springfield, Missouri, and he spoke about all the changes that happened since September 11th. And he responded to those who suggest that we aren't safer. And he talked about the fact that in Afghanistan, there are no longer terror camps, and in Pakistan, we have an ally helping us fight the war on terror, not a transit point for terrorists. And in Libya, we have a dictator who has abandoned his pursuit of weapons of mass destruction. And then he addressed Saddam Hussein as a ruler who was the sworn enemy of America. And he said he was defying the world. He was firing weapons at American pilots and forcing the world's sanctions. He had pursued and used weapons of mass destruction against his own people. He had harbored terrorists. He had invaded his neighbors. He subsidized the families of suicide bombers. He had murdered tens of thousands of his own citizens. He was a source of great instability in the world's most vulnerable region. I took those threats seriously. After September 11th, we had to look at the threats in a new light. One of the lessons of September 11th is we must deal with threats before they fully materialize. He talked about the 12 years of defiance and the role of the UN, and then he said, when he continued to deceive the weapons inspectors, I had a decision to make, to hope for the best and to trust the word of a madman and a tyrant, or to remember the lessons of September the 11th and defend our country. Given that choice, I will defend America every time. Now, John Kerry will defend us if we're attacked. 312-591-8900. Barb in Palatine, you're on WLS.
Hello there. Hello
Hi,
there.
hi.
And when I heard the speech about the daughter with the hamster.
The hamster speech, yes.
Yes, it brought me quickly to the thought of Patty Reagan telling about the goldfish
Yeah.
was buried and how President Reagan gave her a lesson in life with this. And I thought, boy, that hamster certainly is a far cry from a goldfish with a theory on life.
And, you know, if it had been John Kerry's funeral and they want to talk about these little family stories, you know, that'd be one thing. But to be up there, you know, trying to tell us why your dad should be president and it's because he can give CPR to a freaking hamster.
Doesn't save the country, does it?
No, maybe, you know, maybe the hamster United States. I don't know. But the hamsters, by the way, are all voting for him, I understand.
Well, that's good. Just so how much brain power they have. But and then he's hitting the high hospitalization, and nothing said about the fact that tort reform is definitely needed, and the fact that his running mate, who would not be elected in his own state, it could very possibly be president, which is a scary thought, scarier than Kerry, believe me. And the fact that this guy is one of those attorneys that sit there and makes the cost of of hospitalization go up.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't want to talk about that.
You know, last night I was listening to your to a counterpart on LS during the night. Appalled that I was at how uninformed people are and how they don't present their cases as well as so many, not me for sure, but other callers, and of course you as the show moderator, for the homework that you do, and you cite all this information, and all that was being spewed was hearsay and thoughts and how bad the Republicans were. I wanted to turn it off, but I said, no, I have to listen to how bad this is to know that we are in really great trouble if for some reason President Bush is not reelected, because these guys just don't have a clue.
Barb, this is why I call the Democratic Party the lawless leading the ignorant. That's what I call them. And I think that when you listen to some of these so-called cases that they make, it's amazing. In fact, one of the people that was being lauded at this convention was Ben Affleck, who passes in Hollywood for a political expert. And I'm going to play some of the sound. And, you know, frankly, he is smarter than most of them, and he is very uninformed. So, anyway, but I appreciate your call. You're right about the goldfish. I forgot about that.
Thank you so
Have
much.
A good day. Bye. Let's listen, though. Let's listen to some Ron Reagan, because he did provide some interesting entertainment at the convention. Let's take a listen to how he started.
Let me assure you, I am not here to make a political speech, and the topic at hand should not, must not, have anything to do with partisanship. I am here tonight to talk about the issue of research into what may be the greatest medical breakthrough in our or any lifetime. The use of embryonic stem cells, cells created using the material of our own bodies.
Yeah, indeed. So he's not making a political speech, and he's quite unhappy with people on the other side of this issue from him, and here's what he had to say about them.
There are those who would stand in the way of this remarkable future, who would deny the federal funding so crucial to basic research. They argue that interfering with the development of even the earliest stage embryo, even one that will never be implanted in a womb and will never develop into an actual fetus, is tantamount to murder. A few of these folks, needless to say, are just grinding a political axe, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Right, unlike him, he is not political. He's just there to talk about stem cell research. And here's how he ended.
This is our moment, and we must not falter. Whatever else you do, come November 2nd, I urge you, please, cast a vote for embryonic stem cell research. Thank you for your time.
As long as it's not political. Sue, you're on WLS.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Sue.
I thought that speech, I laughed out loud. There's a...
You mean the Ron Reagan speech, yes.
Right, Ron Reagan speech. There's a part in there. He says, but don't worry, it's not a human being. He's talking about growing, these things, and it's not a human being, and it's just a blobber. And wouldn't it be great to have it available? You could go to the doctor, and this would be available to you or something.
He talked about how you'd have your own repair kit or something.
Your own repair kit.
Yeah.
And I thought about, what was that movie where they had all those bodies, like, hanging in a warehouse?
I think it was Coma. It was Coma, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I thought of, and I laughed out loud. And it was so funny. I mean, he's the one to be ashamed of himself. I thought, all I could think of was, oh, my gosh, President Reagan would be so ashamed.
I know. You know, if you didn't have a political axe to grind and you wanted to work on this issue and you really wanted to get somewhere rather than get attention for yourself, wouldn't you try to work on this behind the scenes? And, in fact, being a Reagan, wouldn't you try to work within the Republican Party to persuade the president and his advisors to move in your direction? I think he's the one, when he says someone has a political axe to grind, I think he's the one with the political axe to grind.
Well, Terry, also, at the funeral, when they gave speeches, I mean, they all gave a nice enough speech.
Right.
But I had my kids watch, and I was, at one point I said, I think he just took a swipe at President Bush. I didn't even know, exactly whether it was liberal or, and, I'm thinking, isn't that awful? Wouldn't his father be disappointed?
Yeah, well, he's been a liberal for many years. He voted for Ralph Nader in the last election. He's a big lib, so we weren't surprised. But I just think it's incredibly disingenuous for him to claim he's not grinding a political axe. And I agree with you. I think he should be ashamed of himself.
But it was funny. And then he tried to explain it for like 15, 20 minutes, and they showed people on the floor. They were like rolling their eyes and looking around, and oh my gosh!
It was something else. It was.
I thought they didn't go over his speech enough. They didn't. And you know what? The daughter too. What I wanted to point out too. Did you hear the thing about my dad used to come to the soccer games with an orange hunting hat on?
Yes. I did.
Like,
I didn't bring that soundbite in. I should grab that one for our Second Amendment update.
And then the one about the tree. He said something about a tree.
It's a spiritual, like a spiritual temple.
Every single thing, and they all quoted scripture or mentioned a prayer or angels.
It was unbelievable. So, hey, Sue, I agree with you. I think Ron Reagan was pretty funny, and he'll be around more, so we'll get more laughs as the campaign goes on. Thanks so much. Hey, let's talk to and Andrea. I'm sorry you hung up. She wanted to tell me she liked the convention. She didn't care what I had to say. Call back, Andrea. I wanted to get your take, but first I want to talk to Tom. Hey, Tom, you're on WLS.
Hey, Terry, it's nice to talk to you again. I wanted to mention the O'Reilly-Michael Moore interview. Normally, O'Reilly is very prepared, and he didn't do his homework because this guy Moore uses the same rhetorical trickery every time he talks to someone, and it's arguing from a false premise.
And it was awful. It was just awful. He didn't confront him with so many falsehoods that he could have, I was looking so forward to that. I thought, oh, this is so great. But I should have known, Michael Moore never goes into a venue where he will seriously be questioned. He never does.
Well, the false premise is that there are many wars, or at least wars exist, where most people would say, sure, I'll sacrifice my son or daughter for that war.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes from there to pose the question to O'Reilly, would you sacrifice your son or daughter in Fallujah? And I mean, O'Reilly should have been ready for this. There isn't a war that ever happened that any sane parent would say, sure, I'll sacrifice my child.
Of course, and besides, he said George Bush is sending people to die for Fallujah or whatever. That's ridiculous. It's a volunteer army, and in fact, I think a lot of the people who serve in the U.S. military would be very, very insulted. Frankly, I think what might be nice is if Michael Moore had to be locked in a room with some of those people for a few minutes. I'd like to see that happen. I'd pay good money to see that, frankly. But
so, Terry, I hope that some listener out there this will trickle over to them, and the next person that he tries this little trick on. I mean, he intercepts congressman on the street apparently in his movie and poses the same question. It's the old 70s rhetorical. Anybody that's had Logic 101 can see through this.
I totally agree, and so I just really am disappointed in Bill O'Reilly. He really let us down. He really did.
That was a shame. But not only did he fall for it, but then he turned around and shoved his foot all the way down into his stomach and said, "Well, let's let everybody himself." And Moore just laughed at him and said, "Tie him up."
Yeah, that's right.
It was pathetic.
It was pathetic. Hey, Tom, I got to go to a break, and you're cutting out, so I'm going to let you go, but I agree with you. Have a great drive safe out there. Okay, bye. 312-591-8900. I'm going to play for you some more sound bites and talk a little bit about Barack Obama and get your take on the convention. All that before we leave here at 3 o'clock. I'm Teri OBrien. This is News Talk 890 WLS.
Women who have all earned their right to their opinions. Instead of being called opinionated, will be called smart and well-informed, just like men. If you could have seen Hillary Clinton during this part of the speech, if looks would kill, as she obviously thought, I know you paid for the microphone and we have to endure this insufferable babbling, but if anyone has earned the right to an opinion, it is I, the U.S. Senator. And yes, Teresa, there is a difference between being smart and informed and being opinionated. And obviously, Teresa does not know the difference. Although, the good news is that she has told every gay group that if they're elected, they will have a mom in the White House. The Washington Times reported on Thursday that there was a big shindig at a hotel, and Ben Affleck was there. Ben Affleck is like joined at the hip to John Kerry now. And they were reassuring all these homosexual delegates and advocates that they would have a lot to gain if Bush was out of the White House and the Kerrys were there, and they would have a mom. If nothing else, you will have a mom in the White House. Teresa Heinz Kerry said before the packed hotel room of homosexual delegates and advocates. It's funny, I saw Bill Maher on TV talking about how he was asking Colorado Governor Owens why it is at the Republican convention they're going to have all these moderates, but at the Democrat convention, they weren't afraid to show us who they are. Oh, really? I didn't see anybody talking about this gay agenda up on the podium. I kind of thought that was I thought that was verboten. They didn't talk, but when they were behind closed doors, they did talk about it. Okay, let's go to the very patient Andrea. Andrea, thank you so much for calling back. You are on WLS.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good.
I'm enjoying the show. I'm a registered Democrat, and so this is so interesting to me and my drive back to Michigan.
Cool.
I enjoyed the convention. I went and listened to the president in Grand Rapids, Michigan a couple days ago, and I'm going to go listen to the senator when he's in town in a couple days. So I'm trying to stay on top of things. I originally called because the woman about a half an hour ago that talked about Senator Kerry talking about looking at Old Glory, and then she said, how can he look at the flag so, with such awe, but then think that it's okay to, quote unquote, desecrate it. And, I'm going to say the old argument that we always say that, someone can be a patriot and still believe that, I can do with the flag anything that I want to do with the flag. It doesn't mean that I'm any less of a patriot.
I agree with you, but don't you think it was a little bit of a masquerade? Don't you think some of this was a little bit of a masquerade? See, here's what I think, Andrea. I think when John Kerry, very gratuitously, didn't have to do this, but he did do it. After Whoopi Goldberg got up and made her her little routine, gave her routine and pointed at her crotch and did all that stuff. And he got up and said, you know, you represent the heart and soul of America. And I think when he said that, I think he was being honest. But I don't think what we saw Thursday night was honest. I think it was an attempt to make us think that he has our values, which I don't think he has.
Well, you know, the voters will let us know if he has our values. So I don't know. He certainly has my values, and, and he's speaking, and you know, they hired the producer of the Emmys to produce the convention. So I mean, I expected some silliness, and did I enjoy listening to the hamster story? No, but did I enjoy seeing the Bush twins and Vanity Fair wearing $6,000 gowns? No.
Yeah, you're right. Now, I want to ask you a substantive question, because you are a thinking, engaged person, obviously, and you're informed. What do you think of this idea of having Osama bin Laden tried in U.S. courts?
Well, no, I think that I wouldn't agree with that. He didn't commit crimes here in the United States.
Well, that's what John Kerry wants to do. That's what he said.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, so I think you need to think about that, because, you know, this foreign terror thing, all this other stuff, this healthcare stuff, all this stuff is important, and taxes and all that is very important, but really, you know, the most important thing is the fact that there are people determined to kill as many of us as possible.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if I agree with your theory that Iraq, that we should invade countries due to a potential threat.
Okay, well,
I was one that in January of last year, I traveled for my job. I'm a corporate banker, and I was sitting in a lobby in Seattle, and I'm watching Colin Powell hold up weapons-grade
anthrax.
Yeah, and man, I believed it. And I turned to my colleague and I said, we need to go and get rid of this guy. We need to. My brother, FYI, is in the Air Force. He's going to be deployed in December. He's got 2 children, 7 and 8, and he's, you know, saying that's my job. I'm going. My father was a Marine, so I get it. What's difficult for me though is that, you know, I believed what Colin Powell was saying, that there's a direct link. I looked at satellite photos, and I just haven't seen it yet. I'm not sure if it's worth what is the count, up to 12,000 men and women are injured, and we have up to 700-800 are killed.
Well, keep listening, and I'll share some reasons why I do think it's worth it. And one question before I let you go. You've been very patient, and as I said, I love having a thinking, engaged woman on the phone. Obviously, you're very informed. Have you read yet the 9/11 report?
I haven't, but my husband and I were just saying that we need to pick that up.
Well, I'm going to share some. I've in my lawyerly way that I have, I've been highlighting and putting Post-its on it, and I've just flipped to a page, so I'm going to share something. First, though, I'm going to play a soundbite from Ben Affleck for you, because I know you're going to enjoy that. But drive safe to Michigan out there, and thanks
Can I have one more?
Yeah,
one more thing?
Sure.
You talked about Ron Reagan Jr. and how the President Reagan would have been just so embarrassed.
Yeah.
Didn't Nancy Reagan? Didn't she go in front of Congress and lobby for stem cell research?
Well, I don't think that's
within the last 6-9 months.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the same thing. As I said, you know, if he really wants to work on this issue, if he disagrees with the president on this issue, I don't think that's embarrassing. And if he wants to try to change the president's mind, I think that's fine. But I think this was a very narcissistic display on his part. And I agree with Larry Sabato. He's feeling a little envy because people think of him as not a serious person. They see him in a tutu. They see him on Animal Planet. And, you know, he wants to be regarded as a serious person. But I don't think that that's what this is about. So, you know, I don't disagree with him lobbying if he wants to do that. And yeah, she has indeed lobbied, but you didn't see her up there making a speech.
No, I'm sure, because she, you know, didn't. I'm sure if the Republicans would give Ron Reagan Jr. his 5 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever they would give him, I'm sure he would take it as well. That's such an important issue that yeah, I just disagreed with that portion, but I sure am learning the other side of the coin from your program, and thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Drive safe out there, kid.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, now Ben Affleck appeared with Bill O'Reilly, actually on the same day as that really, really disappointing interview with Michael Moore. And Ben Affleck, as you know, I just mentioned he's joined at the hip to John Kerry, and he's supporting him. And here's what he had to say about, obviously, this guy, Ben Affleck, not read the 9/11 report either. This is what he had to say.
Saddam Hussein's Iraq was a Ba'athist, basically secular, former puppet state of the Soviet Union. In fact, Osama bin Laden had avowed, you know, was a sworn enemy of Saddam Hussein's, and had so much so that he had to release a tape later on saying, well, it is okay to fight the Americans in Iraq. Now, I know that they're the godless communists, but now I'm sort of changing my tune. Everybody worth their salt knew that Saddam Hussein had no relationship with Al-Qaeda.
Obviously, Ben Affleck, I think Saddam Hussein is a communist. Don't know where that came from. But obviously, he says, he parrots the mythology that there was no connection. And as I mentioned, remember, the major maladjustment and misapprehension that people like Ben Affleck and those who claim that Iraq was not justified because Saddam Hussein was not involved in 9/11, what they fail to understand is we don't believe, those on our side, we don't believe that the action against Iraq was about retribution for 9/11. It's about preventing the next 9/11. It's as the president said, that when Saddam Hussein continued to defy the will of the world community after 12 years, when the burden of proof was on him to prove that he did not have these weapons, the president had a decision to make, and that was to trust a madman, a tyrant, someone who had been deceiving the weapons inspectors, or to remember the lessons of September 11th. He chose the latter, and I will go with that every time. But I just wanted to mention, because I said to Andrea I would mention this, page 134 of the 9/11 report describes an incident in February of 1999 when the intelligence agencies wanted to fly a U-2 over Afghanistan to gain some baseline intelligence about these terrorist camps and where the tribal people were meeting. And Richard Clark, you remember him, he didn't want to do it because he was afraid that the Pakistanis would tip off bin Laden, because we had to use their airspace. And he said if that were to happen, if bin Laden got this information, quote, armed with that knowledge, old wily Osama will likely boogie to Baghdad. And there are many other places in the 9/11 report where it's claimed that if Osama was driven out of Afghanistan, he would eventually end up in Iraq. And I guess my question to people who say Afghanistan was justified and Iraq isn't, where do you think Osama bin Laden was going to go for a new base of operations? Seems like a reasonable question. We'll take more of your calls on the other side, and I'll also share the worst thing Barack Obama said and the Wendy's story. All that and more on News Talk 890 WLS.
Does your home have that damp, musty smell? That's a sure sign of excess moisture and poor ventilation. If left untreated, this can cause mold activity and a buildup.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for being with us to kick off our first...
Illinois GOP to decide on Senate candidates.
Is the GOP DOA or in ICU?
Get the inside story with Don and Roma. Weekdays 5 to 9 a.m. on News Talk 890 WLS.
Definitely DOA, Don. Teri OBrien on News Talk 890 WLS. I want to go back to the phones and take some more of your reaction to the convention, to Barack Obama. Why is there no critical inquiry into his voting record? And then I am going to play for you, this is very exciting, a new John Kerry theme song. I'll play that when we talk about the Wendy's, and I'll share with you the most appalling thing Barack Obama said. Let's talk to Dan. This sounds like fun. Hey, Dan, you're on WLS. Hi.
Terry, good to listen to you. You're great. My wife and I listen to you every week.
Thanks.
We have started a new game here in our house this week because of all the attention that Barack Obama has been getting. We have started a new drinking game here in our house that every time we hear the word in a newscast or on a talk show, we take a drink.
The name Obama?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Barack Obama.
Okay, so...
It could be like a parrot out there. Barack Obama.
So every time you hear it, you take a drink.
That's right.
Okay.
But fortunately, we've stuck to non-alcoholic beverages because if we actually used alcoholic beverages, we'd be drunk in the first hour.
Well, all I have to say is Barack Obama is the kindest, warmest, bravest, most wonderful human being I've ever met in my life. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, you need to see the original, I don't know about the new one, but the original Manchurian Candidate, and you will understand. Because I kept thinking of that. In the Manchurian Candidate, of course, they're all brainwashed to keep repeating, Raymond Shaw is the kindest, warmest, bravest, most wonderful human being I've ever met in my life. And that's what I kept thinking of when I watched this, because to a person, that was all you heard from all the media, talking heads, and everybody, so. Well, you got to watch it out there, though. I mean, you promised me you're not going to switch to alcohol because it's only going to get worse, and I fear for your safety.
Well, that's the only way we can feel we can stomach all of this stuff here.
Well, keep
speaking the truth.
Yeah, well, keep watching. I'm hoping we'll see more critical examination.
Oh, and I got a comment, too. You had the little girl on there that talked about that Dick Cheney should spend
a time out.
Yeah, because of what he said. Well, did she also direct that at Senator Kerry when he swore in a Rolling Stone interview?
She didn't mention that. I think we need to get back to Little Orphan Annie and ask her that. Great point, Dan. Thanks so much. I should have made that. Thanks. It's rare when you guys out there bust me on something like that, but this time you really did. I'm kidding. You guys often come up with something I missed. Thanks for bringing that up.
All the drinking we're doing out here.
I need to have a drink after watching that convention, I'm telling you. Hey, Dan, have a great weekend. And try to listen this week to me and Jake. We're going to be on for Don and Roma all week.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks so much. Drive safe.
Thanks.
Bye. Actually, I don't know if he was driving, but Jim is driving. Jim, you're on WLS. Hey.
Is this, hello?
Yeah, you're on the air. You're on WLS.
Oh, thank God. Terry, I love your program. I wish you were on every day.
Well, tomorrow through Friday, Jake and I are going to be on for Don and Roma, so tune in.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'll wake up at 5 then.
Yeah.
But my comment was, he loves Jane Fonda at the convention, and she didn't show up. His world revolved around her in the 70s. I'm a two-tour vet from Vietnam. It just infuriates me the way he came back and beat everybody up verbally and accused everybody of doing all these atrocities. And Jane Fonda was his best friend then. And yet she wasn't there. And nobody has brought that up, not even Rush. I was surprised.
First of all, Jim, thank you very much for your service to our country, and thank you so much for helping to end the Cold War and defeat communism, and thank you for helping to try to defend the Vietnamese people against those who wanted to send them into a Soviet-style gulag, which, John Kerry didn't seem to care too much about. But aside from that, the whole thing, as you know, was basically a fantasy. It was a big masquerade. As I pointed out, they didn't have a lot of their most ardent supporters up on the podium. They really tried to, as liberals always do, hide their genuine agenda and their genuine beliefs, because they know most of us don't share those beliefs.
Well, I'm aware of it. I'm just trying to help other people become aware of it by calling in. And you're doing a great job. I love you, and I'm a Rush guy, and...
Well, thank you so very much, and I hope you can listen during the weekend. I'm glad you're out there. Now, drive safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Okay, you too. 312-591-8900. Let's talk to John. Hey, John, you're on WLS. Hi.
Hi, Terry. How are you?
Good.
Hey, I wanted to say a couple things about Barack Obama. I've been really surprised at what an easy ride he's been getting in the media, and particularly concerning how vague he's been on any policy references, particularly regarding social policy as well as universal health care. He does favor universal health care, which I know a lot of people like, but if you look at what happened 10 years ago, what's happened to other systems, notably Britain and Canada, you're talking about a huge tax expenditure to fund that, number one. Secondly, his language refers to mutual obligations among society members, as well as, I think he mentioned in his speech, as well as with some interviews, with just a small shift in priorities, we can give every kid a great shot at life. And what I think people are missing is these are just tremendous tax burdens. And if you think about it, he's been heralded as a new figure. But what he's saying is that things have been around. We've been trying for 40 years. And I guess the thing that really bothers me is we've tried some of the programs I think he's hinting at for 40 years, and it's produced tripling in illegitimacy rates. It's produced a decrease in terms of SAT scores and whatnot. We've had terrible results with this. And it seems like really this proto-socialist, dogma is being sort of dressed up in a new face and pushed forward and just not questioned critically.
Yeah, you're right, and this is why they just want to talk about their personal stories. They want to talk about his personal story and John Edwards' personal story. And I think that's all interesting when we're talking about people, and they might be great guys, but as you point out, when we're talking about who's going to make social policy and public policy for our country, that is not what's important, the personal stories. So I totally agree, and I'm hoping that we'll see some more critical examination. I want to play for you what I thought was the most shocking thing he said, though. So keep listening.
Sure.
Thanks, John. Yeah, he's right about that. Okay, now this is the part. This is right at the beginning, and this is something that I think most of the people in this audience will completely disagree with, but this is what Barack Obama said.
Thank you, Dick Durbin. You make us all proud.
I don't think so. You make us all proud, Dick Durbin, the man, Eddie Haskell, our own Eddie Haskell, the man so famously called and so accurately called by the late Steve Neal, the pudgy huckster. And he's the one who introduced Barack Obama. And don't kid yourself. He shares all this crypto-socialist agenda with Barack Obama, and it's not examined critically with him. I heard him, in fact, on this very radio station during the convention, making some out-and-out false statements about the 9/11 report, about Iraq. It wasn't challenged. I used to think the role of journalists was to challenge when public figures made inaccurate statements. But I've learned the role of journalists is to be shills for Democrats, basically, and to be like their press agents. 312-591-8900. Okay, Phil, you're on WLS. Hi.
Great show once again.
Thank you.
Well, you're the best, really. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Obama. I mean, and it's so unfortunate what has happened to the state of Illinois. It's just terrible. I mean, first of all, we have Dick Durbin, and I know you talked a little bit about him, but this is a guy who, is a United States Senator who talks about the Patriot Act as if it's some kind of evil, terrible thing, and it's meant to protect us.
Yeah.
And he's vehemently against it, which I just can't believe it. I don't know who he's trying to protect. If he's trying to protect drug dealers or what. It's just ridiculous. And, I agree with you with Obama. I mean, this kid is out-and-out socialist.
Right.
And,
right. He might be a nice guy. He might be a nice guy. He's an articulate guy. He's got an interesting personal story. All that's true, but none of that examines his plans for the country.
And that was key what you said. I agree with you totally. This whole personal story stuff is just to mask their policies. And,
right.
And how do they get away with it? It's just ridiculous. And you're right about journalists, too, because they don't ask questions anymore, especially the Democrats. They just, well, whatever they say, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's completely unchallenged. Okay, now I want to tell you, Phil, I'm going to let you go, because I want to let you guys hear the story about John Kerry going to Wendy's. Did you hear about this, what happened to him? And there's two parts to this, and they're both good. What happened when he went there, and then the rest of the story, the Paul Harvey rest of the story. So I hope you can listen this week when Jake and I are in for Don and Roma. We'll be in all week for them from 5 to 9 a.m., so give us a listen. Thanks, Phil. Have a great day. Okay, all right. What happened was, hold on, I need to get the attention of Producer Joe. Producer Joe, we are going to be needing to have our John Kerry update theme. I don't know if she's listening. Joe? Producer Joe. Attention, Producer Joe. We're going to be needing the Kerry update theme. We're going to be coming up to that in a second. Okay, first of all, you know the story about John Edwards and his wife Elizabeth, who go to Wendy's supposedly every year for their wedding anniversary. They had their 27th wedding anniversary on Friday, I guess it was, and John Kerry approached a group of Marines. And according to the New York Post, the story on July 31st by Stephen Friedman, a group of Marines publicly dissed the Vietnam War hero in the middle of a crowded restaurant. He approached them at the table at Wendy's, and two were in uniform, two were off duty. They were polite but curt while chatting with Kerry, answering most of his questions with a yes, sir, or a no, sir. Then they turned downright nasty after he thanked them for their service and left. Quote, he imposed on us, and I disagree with him coming over here shaking our hands, one Marine said. I'm 100% against him. A sergeant with 10 years of service under his belt said, I speak for all of us. We think that we are doing the right thing in Iraq. And the soldier said he's eager to go there. They would not give their names, and they're all from nearby Stewart Air Force Base. Okay, that's the Wendy's story. But there's more. Here's the rest of the story. Before we hear the theme, let me give you the rest of the story, because then you'll understand the theme. So I heard Jake, my new partner for this week, playing theme songs. He didn't choose this one. I think this is the perfect one. Okay, this is from something called the Mid-Hudson News that serves the Hudson Valley. Was the real lunch choice Wendy's or fine dining? While Democratic presidential nominee John Kerry and his running mate John Edwards and their families were having a light lunch at Wendy's in Newburgh Friday, drumming up local support, their real lunches were waiting on the bus. A member of the Kerry advance team called Nicola's Restaurant at the Newburgh Yacht Club the night before and ordered 19 five-star lunches to go that would be picked up at noon on Friday. One of them, they were for the Edwards and Kerry families, and actor Ben Affleck, who, of course, is, as I said, always with them, who is on their bus. The gourmet meals included shrimp vindaloo, grilled diver sea scallops, prosciutto-wrapped stuffed chicken, and steak salad. The meals came to about $200. Oh, yeah, they're just like us. Okay, let's hear the new John Kerry theme song. What do you think? No, not that one. This one. I gotta. It's a technical workshop. Yeah. Sing it, Lou. Two faces have I. Two faces have I. Yep. There he is eating his shrimp vindaloo. Unbelievable. Okay, when we come back, we'll hear that again because that's going to come up all before November. We come back. Shocking news from USA Today on John Kerry's convention bounce. Not. I'm Teri OBrien. This is News Talk 890 WLS.
2003 was a great year for Permaseal Basement Systems.
On your portfolio. Listen for Money Talk with Bob Brinker, Saturday and Sunday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on News Talk 890 WLS.
Teri OBrien on News Talk 890 WLS. Yes, USA Today reports. New poll taken Friday and Saturday, post-convention poll. No boost for Kerry after the convention. This poll reflects the fact that the Kerry Edwards ticket trails Bush Cheney 50 to 46% among likely voters. With Nader at 2% before the convention, the two were essentially tied with Kerry at 47, Bush at 46. It's a stunning result, according to USA Today, the first time since 1972 in their Democratic convention. Remember that train wreck, that a candidate seemed to lose ground at his convention. Let's go quickly to Barb. Barb, we're just about out of here. I wanted to get you on the air. Welcome to WLS. Hello, Barb. Oh, boy, we're going to have to put her back on hold. She didn't turn her radio down. Oh, well, let's go to Barb. Hey, Barb, you're on WLS.
Hi, this is Barb from Hamlet. Is that the right one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
real quick, because we're just about out of here.
Okay. My comment was on Ron Reagan with the embryonic stem cell research.
Yeah.
You know, he should at least do the research to find out, because all the facts and the wonderful statistics he was quoting are on adult stem cell research, which has been done successfully, and hopefully there'll be more research put into that. Embryonic stem cell research, there's 0% success even in the preliminary animal tests.
Well, I'm not surprised that I am surprised that a science expert like Ron Reagan would get it wrong, Barb. And of course, I'm kidding. Hey, I got to get out of here. Thanks for making that point. It's a great one.
Absolutely. Well, you have a great day. Enjoy your show.
Okay. I'll be here tomorrow, how many hours from now? 14 hours from now, with Jake Hartford in for Don and Roma. Thank you so much, producer Joe Wheeler. Yeah. There it is, our new John Kerry theme. We're going to be hearing a lot of that before November. Two faces have I. Not me, John Kerry. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay tough, because only the strong can stay free.
What do you see yourself doing in a few years? If you're